The 7 deadly sins, mankind's darkest impulses. Can science crack the mysterious code behind what drives us to sin? The science of sin. Lust, wrath, 2 ancient sins, bottled up impulses often impossible to control. Can science reveal why many humans seem biologically hardwired to allow their anger to explode into wrath?
People get attached to their anger. It can even be part of their identity.
Can new research also expose the complex evolutionary reasons why humans commit murder?
Murder is part of all of us. We are all capable of murder.
Is the deadly sin of lust part of the equation?
I would define lust as blind, erotic desire.
The reason lust is a sin is it says, I want to satisfy my sexual desires now, and be damned to the consequences.
Groundbreaking experiments are uncovering why the sins of the flesh, more accessible than ever in human history, continue to lead us to adultery.
Sex matters. It matters big time.
Lust. Wrath. Watch as science decodes 2 of humanity's most primal instincts. Clive Williams is struggling to understand why the sin of wrath explodes within him.
I normally tend to get really angry. Inside, it's a million feelings, a million thoughts, and you're just really overwhelmed. It's just boom, and it's hard to go back.
You can tell just by looking at him that he's getting angrier and angrier. He's quiet, and he'll build it up and build it up and build it up and build it up, and then he just goes, he's like a volcano, he'll explode.
One. Hey! Alton.
What does Daddy have, Santa?
Clive and Vanessa fell in love and started a family in their late teens. Now, 4 years later, and with 2 young daughters to consider, Clive's wrathful behavior, fueled by the explosive emotion of anger, has taken his family to the breaking point.
I made a decision to leave because the problems never seem to be fixed. He says that he would change, he'll do this, he'll do that, and within a few days, he'd be right back to his normal self. And I just figured to myself, like, how long do I have to wait?
Clive Williams' anger has become a force of its own, volatile and unpredictable.
I feel scared when he yells sometimes, yeah, because I don't know what his next step might be, whether if he goes and breaks something or if he goes and punches the wall.
A human being's life should be guided by his mind, not his emotions. That's why we walk upright. God created us upright so that our minds were above our hearts. Anger means your emotions are in full control, and you become like an animal.
Clive's anger boiled over the night Vanessa threatened to walk out.
I got really angry. She wanted to leave. I didn't want her to leave. I didn't want to lose my family, like, you know, pretty much any man would fight for. And yeah, it just got out of control. I ended up breaking a door.
I heard pretty heavy footsteps coming down the stairs saying, "Ma'am, are you okay?" And then I thought, oh great, like the police are here. Like, I didn't want that.
Then I got arrested, and I was told that I was not allowed to come home for a year.
Clive's rage was a wake-up call. The charges were eventually dropped, but Clive realized that if he explodes again, he'll lose his family for good.
I know for a fact that I'd never hurt my kids, but I'm scared of it going too far. Having all this built-up anger inside of me, end up hurting somebody else, to the point where it changes their life and mine as well.
Can Clive reverse his rage in time to save his family? Could the scientist who coined the term anger management provide some hope? Like wrath, the ancient religious sin of lust can forever change your life. Brian and Ashley Peer are on a short getaway to Seattle. Away from the demands of family and work, it's a bit of R&R that any married couple might envy. But the Peers aren't in Seattle for fun.
We've had a lot going on over the last few months, and I think it's going to be kind of a different kind of step for us and a turn for the better, I think, for us in our relationship. I've probably sinned, multiple times, from a lust aspect, and, this relationship, I just kind of carried lust to a whole new level.
I'm not looking forward to rehashing every emotion and every detail or whatever, and part of me is actually kind of nervous to find out what's going to be uncovered. When I found out about the infidelity, I turned more inward, like I must have done something wrong. I must have been lacking. Not that necessarily he was lacking, but I thought I wasn't a good wife.
The question is asked, what's wrong with an affair? We should be devoting our lives to making our marriages work, because it's a sacred and a holy thing to be happily married. And there's nothing I know that's more offensive and more destructive to a marriage than an affair.
One of the things I want to find out more than anything is what it is that kind of caused me to make all these decisions that I made, all the poor decisions over all that time. And I want us to, be stronger in the end as a couple.
While Brian is desperate to comprehend why the sin of lust overtook him, research into the evolution of sex suggests Brian is fighting a losing battle with human biology.
I do not think men and women have evolved to be in long-term sexually monogamous relationships. We need to understand that we're animals and that we are subject to surging tides of hormonal changes throughout our lives, men as well as women.
While human evolution may not be on their side, Brian and Ashley are still deeply committed to each other. And they have pinned their hopes on this cutting-edge love lab in Seattle. But can science really help undo the damage lust has brought to their sacred wedding vows? The sin of wrath is wreaking havoc in Clive Williams' life and is tearing his young family apart. When he narrowly avoided a court-ordered separation from his family, it was a brutal wake-up call.
If I could learn some different strategies or get to the bottom of why I'm like the way I am to keep my family, then I would do that.
If anyone can teach Clive anger control, it's Dr. Ray Navaco of the University of California, Irvine. He coined the term anger management 35 years ago and has offered to help.
Anger is a very personal thing, and when I'm seeking to help a person with their anger difficulties, I need to know about their anger signature, the way in which they personally experience their anger.
To witness Clive's anger signature, Dr. Navaco has devised a unique scale that detects which everyday situations can provoke explosive anger.
Because anger is a normal emotion, and therefore is not necessarily a problem, the question becomes, when is it a problem? When it's too frequent, when it's too intense, when it happens too quick, when it lasts too long, and when it gets expressed in a destructive, aggressive way.
In our pressure cooker world of deadlines, traffic jams, and constant interactions, anger can bubble just below the surface. Road rage. The perfect example.
Just being in a car is arousing, right? Heart rate goes up, breathing quickens, muscles get tighter. When it's combined with a frustrating or provoking experience, the arousal that's normally part of just driving in an automobile gets intensified.
And that road rage arousal can be explosive.
With regard to anger, an important idea for me is looking for antidotes. When you did this, and you were looking at each one of these different situations,
everyone has an anger routine, a personalized switch that can ignite our rage. Dr. Navako's goal is to reveal what Clive's switch is.
These anger experiences. The things that stick with you is when you have some kind of difficulty with someone close to you.
Yeah.
Dr. Navako knows a person's history often provides valuable clues in identifying their anger triggers.
Not having my dad around made me sad. Seeing other kids, they have both their parents. He was being abusive to her when I was a kid, physically. Felt mad about that. Basically, I wanted everything to be different.
There are many things which can make for the disposition to become angry. But an important one is traumatic experience, which can happen at a young age.
I didn't want to, like, sit there and cry about it, so it's like, I'm angry, you know? Like, you just turn everything into rage.
Can Dr. Navako's cutting-edge research techniques provide Clive with the anger management tools his family life never did?
We're just so focused on just getting through.
Are some of the things that you just said, using each other for support and whatnot, are these sort of typical?
Back in Seattle, Brian and Ashley are at the Relationship Research Institute, struggling with lust, hoping to reverse its catastrophic effect on their marriage.
Talk for a few minutes.
Their initial infatuation as high school seniors turned from attraction to love to marriage and the birth of 5 children. Devoutly Christian and leaders in their church, they do not take the sanctity of their wedding vows lightly.
God designed the institution of marriage, and if God designed it, and we believe that God is a perfect, infallible God, then marriage is the way we're supposed to go.
Tomorrow you're going to meet with Dr. Gottman, and he'll tell you a little bit about what we've learned from doing this.
After trying church-based marriage counseling, the peers are now turning to science. The Love Lab will now try to unlock the secrets of their marriage and Brian's sins.
And how have things been generally?
Okay.
Started out rough.
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah.
I truly and firmly believe that God will provide those opportunities to turn what could be a horrible situation into something good.
I think we're finding a new communication that hasn't been there for quite a while. But this disaster, I think, is helping us to kind of communicate to each other better. I was excited, honestly, when I met this woman. She had a nice figure, and she had a pretty face, and there was definite physical attraction there. I guess sexual attraction that kept me making the phone calls and wanting to spend time with her.
He's always, getting important phone calls and stuff, so I grabbed the phone to take it out to the garage, and there was a text message. I'm like, what does that say? And I saw the name, I'm like, that would be a female name. I just started to shake. Like, even now, just talking about it just kind of makes me shake. I couldn't even catch my breath. I've never thrown anything ever at him in anger. I threw the phone at him and I said, we're done.
She said, we are done. I know everything. I completely believe in the concept of sin. From the Bible, I know that, I know that what I was doing was wrong.
While Brian may have understood he was sinning, evolutionary science suggests something more primal was overriding his brain's ability to stop himself. The survival of the species.
You have to mate, and you have to mate successfully in order to pass on your genes. No one wakes up and says, how can I maximize my gene replication?
Instead, this unconscious urge is encoded in our behavior and biology.
There's many chemicals involved. There's many brain regions involved. So it's a very complicated system. But basic to lust is testosterone in both men and women. In fact, if you inject testosterone, the sex drive will go up.
Lust is the first of 3 brain systems designed for mating. Each of these brain systems has a chemical component. Lust is driven by testosterone. Love occurs when the pleasure chemical dopamine floods the body. And long-term bonding is enhanced by the cuddle hormone oxytocin. Oxytocin is key to transforming sexual lust into long-term attachment.
I think the sex drive evolved to get you out there looking for a whole range of partners. I think romantic love evolved to enable you to focus your mating energy on just one at a time. And I think that third brain system of attachment evolved to enable you to stick with that person at least long enough to raise a single child together as a team.
While science claims that lust is designed to bring us together, can it also reveal how it becomes a sin that can tear us apart?
This is going to go on your earlobe.
Keeping a marriage together in the wake of an affair is never easy. But with the help of science, that's the task that Brian and Ashley have undertaken.
When you talk with your hands.
One of the things that's happened in the past 5 years is that a number of scientists have started looking at this problem of infidelity. How does it happen? And we've learned a great deal.
You're going to hear a beep, and there'll be 30
For
seconds.
30 years, psychologist John Gottman and his team at the Love Lab have been analyzing how relationships succeed or fail. Trained observers monitor Ashley and Brian throughout the entire process.
We can predict whether a couple will get divorced or stay married with about 85% accuracy.
Tiny facial expressions, body language, and the content of their conversation are all coded to map their relationship dynamic.
We now know the process by which people betray one another. And it doesn't happen like that. It happens slowly, gradually, in every interaction. People are saying, who needs this? You know, I could do better somewhere else.
Makes me feel like it's not, I can't understand.
The bad news for Brian and Ashley is that when marriages are strained, other human impulses often take over.
Statistics show that at some point in a marriage, as high as 60% of men and 40% of women have had an extramarital affair.
A not uncommon pattern for humans is to fall in love, to mate with one person long term, and then have some sex on the side driven by lust.
Monogamy is like vegetarianism. Just because you've decided to become a vegetarian, don't expect bacon to stop smelling good.
At her University of Texas lab, Dr. Cindy Meston is studying whether a wandering eye is a result of an individual's brain chemistry.
Is there a biological component between humans who choose a monogamous and a non-monogamous lifestyle?
Her interest was sparked by the sex habits of a furry rodent. The montane vole is non-monogamous, but its cousin, the prairie vole, mates for life. The key difference between the species is their level of oxytocin. Higher quantities of this cuddle hormone makes bonding more satisfying for the prairie vole. Are there similar variations in oxytocin levels between humans, causing some of us to embrace a monogamous lifestyle and others to reject it? To find out, men were shown images depicting a range of human activity, from graphic depictions of sexuality to images of romantic love.
Not unlike the voles, we found that monogamous men had higher levels of activation in their brain to romantic stimuli than did the non-monogamous men. So monogamous men find it more rewarding to be monogamous.
Believe it or not, that's part of it right there.
On the flip side, men who received more pleasure from the idea of having many sexual partners exhibited much more testosterone and less oxytocin in their bloodstream. Could minute chemical changes in our body be the key to the sin of lust? Could the same arousal system also drive us to commit the sin of wrath?
Okay, so this is something we have to work on now. Part of what I want to do now is help you understand a little more about your arousal system.
To prevent Clive from ever escalating to his ultimate rage scenario, Dr. Navako has planned an exercise to teach Clive to recognize anger's warning signs. The key is listening to his body. Clive's resting blood pressure provides a baseline.
It's much better to realize that you're starting to get angry. And one of the important systems for that is the arousal system. And your awareness of what is happening to you physically, the changes in your body, indicators that you're starting to get on edge. I want you to think now about a situation that was very frustrating for you.
Yeah, I have a bunch in mind.
You have a whole bunch in mind?
Yeah.
I want you to pick up that telephone book and tear it up. Think about that situation.
The emotion of anger is formed in the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for identifying threats. As Clive's muscles tense, his jaw clenches and his gaze narrows. Neurotransmitters called catecholamines send a burst of energy to his body, and his adrenaline spikes. Clive's cardiovascular system kicks into overdrive. His breathing becomes more rapid as blood flows to his hands and legs. His body is ready to fight. But once that anger arousal system kicks in, can Clive learn how to control it? Dr. Ray Navako has given Clive a simple exercise to demonstrate how even imagining a frustrating event triggers a flood of anger that can take over his body.
Remember what it was before? It was 126 over 70. It's now 152 over 95. Well, now you can see that changes are happening to your body physically, and your blood pressure is going up in a very significant way. Getting angry at high levels of intensity is almost always problematic. High-intensity arousal overrides our ability to think clearly about circumstances and situations. The higher the blood pressure is, the higher the arousal system is, the more likely we're going to act impulsively, act before we think, and possibly do things that we wish we hadn't done.
Clive knows the regret his volatile anger can lead to.
If I got really angry and really exploded, it would be physical. Somebody else's death or mine. So I don't want to get to that point. Realistically, honestly, I don't want it to get to that point.
While Clive is working hard to harness his rage, Gary Glowacki knows all too well what happens when someone cannot. He runs the Bridge Prison Ministry, helping ex-prisoners reintegrate into the outside world. He's on his way to see inmate Yuri Bobika, who brutally murdered his wife. Gary still remembers when he first saw the news on TV.
The police were escorting Yuri away from the crime scene. He had on a white T-shirt and handcuffs, and there was blood all over him, and he was wailing loudly like an animal in shock.
It wasn't Yuri's first act of wrath. He already served jail time for assaulting his wife. During that time, his wife realized she had had enough and divorced him. But Yuri could not let go. Upon his prison release, he still believed that he, his wife, and their child could once again be a family.
When I heard that we never be back together, at that instant I made that decision. That decision was affected by my overwhelming rage, uncontrollable rage.
The biggest predictors of when men kill their romantic partners are, one, when it has finally sunk into his mind that she is leaving him and it's irreconcilable. she's not coming back. The second is if she commits an infidelity and he discovers that infidelity.
Evolutionary science is now showing that the profound loss Yuri felt has led many into committing the darkest crime of passion known to man.
Murder is part of all of us. We are all capable of murder.
I've often thought that nature has overdone it. The way people suffer when they have been rejected in love is astonishing. But from a Darwinian perspective, we've lost life's greatest prize, which is a mating partner and a parenting partner.
Helen Fisher's brain research reveals the loss of a lover can lead many humans to become excessively attached to their ex-lovers and even stalk them.
I and my colleagues have now put 15 people who had just been rejected in love into a brain scanner to see what happens in the brain when you've really been dumped. And indeed, a great many brain regions become activated. Perhaps most important is a long pathway associated with addiction, profound addiction. You are addicted to this person. So when you've been rejected in love, you remain profoundly in love with this person, deeply attached to them, in physical pain, and wildly craving that individual. That's not a good combination.
Those feelings, they started to build up. They basically gripped me till the night when I murdered my wife. I felt hot. I felt like my whole body is shaking, and I'm getting electrocuted, you know. I was very tense. I was totally paralyzed by some fear, gripped, and I'm not denying that I didn't make decision, that choice, particular choice to attack my wife and start to stab her with that knife which I had in my head.
After forcing his way into her apartment, Yuri viciously stabbed his estranged wife 32 times in front of his 13-year-old son.
I believe I was just screaming at that point over there because for what I've done. I just was screaming. I couldn't understand how I did it. And my son is there, and I was just shouting, "Don't let him see her, don't let him see her."
I would say murder is one of the most chilling acts of evil that we have ever, because you've taken something that can never be replaced.
Every single human being is a child of God. Every single human being is created in the image of God.
No one is lost. No one is not a human being. They're broken, they're damaged, they can be dangerous human beings, but they're human beings.
Left and right, go. Go. Time. I mean, that's it. Pull.
While Clive Williams has never physically harmed anyone, he does worry that his wrath might go too far. Learning to calm the physical effects of anger is vital.
Just take a real deep breath, but inhale through your mouth. Take in as much air as you can. Come on, we'll do it together. And now blow it out.
When you bring air down into the lower portion of the lungs, where oxygen exchange is most efficient, everything changes. Heart rate slows down, blood pressure decreases, muscles relax, anxiety ceases, and most importantly, the mind calms down.
Very good.
Thanks.
Very good. Very good.
Thanks.
You made a lot of progress quickly.
Okay.
Science is making Clive aware of how his physiological arousal is causing his wrath, but he is about to learn that arousal is only a small battle in his all-out war against rage. At the Love Lab in Seattle, Ashley questions whether Brian can stay committed to their marriage.
I think I've said it to you before. I kind of feel like, well, when's the other shoe going to drop? It's kind of like, oh, well, everything's ended, and so now you have nothing but me, so things are going to be good for a while. And then
Brian crushed Ashley's trust when what started as a lust-driven affair with another woman turned into a desire he could not stop.
I moved 1,000 miles away from all of our family and friends to save our marriage, and I thought it was over, and then I found out it wasn't over. The whole time he was still seeing her. She was actually in our fresh start town twice before I'd even been there.
It was a definite struggle for me because I still felt a loyalty to my wife and to my family, but yet the newness and the excitement of this woman was quite a draw for me.
Science is now showing that during his affair, Brian was playing with fire.
Sex is dangerous, and the problem that these people don't understand when they bring adultery into the relationship is that sex can lead to romance. Any kind of sexual stimulation of the genitals drives up dopamine, and dopamine is associated with romantic love and can push you over the threshold into falling in love with somebody. So there's no such thing as casual sex with somebody.
As men age, their testosterone level declines. And declining testosterone manifests as loss of vitality. And one of the few things that can spike a man's testosterone level is sexual contact with a novel female partner, his secretary, let's say. Suddenly, colors are richer, food tastes better, he feels young again. But the problem with that is that these men then interpret these feelings as evidence of love. But this isn't a soulmate, this is biochemistry.
While brain biochemistry clouds a man's judgment, other deep evolutionary factors also induce women to seek out lust-filled affairs.
As an evolutionary psychologist, I look at behaviors that have existed for thousands and thousands of years. Some of the research that I've been involved with has looked at women's preferences and what they find attractive. At one end, you might have what's called the cad, and at the other end, you might have sort of a dad characteristic, or the nice guy. And the research we've done shows that when women are thinking about a short-term relationship or a one-night stand, they're definitely leaning towards the cad. If they're thinking about long-term relationship, they're leaning towards the dad.
The evidence also suggests female cheating can boil down to, quite literally, timing.
During the time when women ovulate, they're at a higher likelihood to cheat on their mate. But they also cheat usually with the cad. And the idea is that the cad has a higher genetic quality than the dad.
Evolution has also seen married couples become very vulnerable to extramarital affairs through what is called mate poaching.
Mate poaching is, in essence, trying to lure someone who's in an existing mating relationship out of that mating relationship, either for a short-term sexual encounter or for a longer-term committed relationship.
Is mate poaching what poisoned Brian and Ashley's relationship?
I was made to feel very special by this other woman. She it seemed like she really kind of honed in on me. She's paid close attention to me, you know, and she would listen to what I had to say. That was a draw for me.
I knew it was more serious when I started to see the depth of the emails, because they were really sharing their hearts with one another, and they were really talking about the future and what the future could mean for them together. The new man in her life was Brian, and the end was to become his wife.
Women often find a man who has a mate more attractive than that same man if he doesn't have a mate. Okay, he's already been pre-screened by this other woman and becomes higher in mate value as a consequence.
I'm fighting for this marriage, and you're enjoying the man he's become after 20 years with me.
Brian succumbed to his lust and is now in danger of losing his family. The threat of losing his family also motivates Clive Williams to take charge of his sin, wrath.
If Clive were to get his anger under control, like, I know I won't be able to deal with it forever. It's not what I want for my life. It's not what I want for my girls. I don't want them growing up being scared of Dad.
Anger management specialist Ray Navaco enlists Vanessa to help.
We're going to role play a situation. And the situation involves coming home, and you're a bit on edge, and you'll be seeing Vanessa.
Hey.
What's wrong?
Not much.
Well, I can tell something's wrong.
No, nothing. Just a long day at work, that's all.
Clive will get into a way where he doesn't want to hear what you have to say, he doesn't care what you have to say, and he won't hear what you have to say.
One way I think about anger is as a toxin.
Because I'm still going to be thinking about it.
At least you get to talk about it.
It significantly impairs our own functioning, but it also impairs our relationships with others.
It's pissing me off that, you know, every time I get into a little mood, you can't just let me be. I always have to talk about it. All right, I'm going to go in the room.
Okay, well,
During the role-playing, Dr. Navaco wants Clive to recognize why and when he feels under attack, and to create antidotes to his rage.
Remember we spoke about the arousal system and posture and all of that. This is the posture.
Listening to myself now, I sound really selfish. Because I keep saying, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to talk about it. So I'm considering only what I want.
What are antidotes? Kindness, love, appreciation.
I love the genuine person you can actually be. Just how you can make me feel when we're on good terms with each other.
Rebuilding his neural pathways and addressing the sin of wrath before it starts is key for Clive. For Brian and Ashley, conquering the sin of lust also means recognizing how acting on our biological sexual impulses leads to disastrous consequences for the one who is deceived.
The person who's been betrayed has flashbacks, can't sleep, has nightmares. Really, everything's been shattered for that person. And the person who's done the betraying has got to really do a lot of work and really realize that he or she has traumatized their partner. You've got to believe the behavior change.
I guess I don't.
I don't think you do.
I don't at all.
I don't think you do. Can you tell him that?
I don't believe you at all. There still has not been one day that I haven't cried.
And what are the tears about?
That you would do this to me, and I still don't feel like I'm what you want. No matter how hard I try.
He's not telling her that he comes home and there are 5 children and she's absorbed with the children, and he feels like he's not loved. She leaves him alone when he's stressed, gives him room, leaves him lonely. What do you need?
I guess just to know that there's more than just I need to be, I guess, needed more than just a paycheck.
Did you know he felt that way?
I had no idea.
How does it feel hearing him say that?
It kills me inside.
There's no question that marriages can survive an affair, but what has to happen is they have to stop the conflict avoidance. They have to really be able to trust one another.
While modern research has helped tackle the ancient sins of lust and wrath, for both Brian and Ashley and Clive and Vanessa, can science ever truly deliver them from their sins? Or will true redemption only be found on a spiritual plane?
I commit Gary and Yuri. Pray that their time together would be a blessed time. And we thank you in Jesus' name.
The reality of what I have done, you know, the guilt, the remorse, the shame, they are with me, they're always present. If I act on my anger violently, abusive, it is a sin of anger. And I have to hold myself accountable for the crime I committed.
Redemption is always possible. We believe that redemption is possible even if you've killed.
We will be required one day to restore the wrongs that we have committed by good things that we can do. And we will be given that opportunity all the time.
Clive Williams appreciates the rare opportunity he's been given to enrich his relationship with Vanessa and their kids. As long as Clive works on his anger issues, Vanessa will stay.
I know that he loves me so much, so when I say I'm gonna leave, I can see his anger as in like, I don't want you to leave. And I don't, it's not, he's not being possessive, it's just, he doesn't like being vulnerable.
I think it takes a lot of courage for Vanessa to stick around because that's very unpredictable, right?
Anger management and anger treatment programs are demonstrably effective. About 75% of the people who receive anger treatment do substantially better.
Clive's hope is that by controlling his body and mind, he can keep his wrathful impulses at bay and his family intact. For Ashley and Brian, science has unlocked many of the secrets of their marriage and has shone a light on Brian's sinful actions. But the couple also knows their struggle against lust is far from over.
I do believe that one of the factors that drove him was lust. But I also believe, too, especially after talking to Dr. Gottman, with the way our lives were at the time and the way that I was choosing to handle it, the best way that I thought I knew. But I really think that it was the stage, kind of like the stage of his life that he was in.
Common question that people ask is monogamy natural? Are people meant to be in long-term relationships? Turns out that the people who are able to stay married and have loving, trusting relationships, they live longer, they're healthier, their immune systems are more effective at combating tumors, their kids are better off. Their kids are better off emotionally and physically. And that relationship is very important. Is monogamy natural? Yeah, if you can make it happy, if you can make it work.
But when it comes to lust, science is proving that deep in our hardwired brains and bodies, this sin will live on.
People can stop blaming themselves and each other for these incongruous events in their love lives, in their sexual lives, and try to understand human sexuality in a way that incorporates our biology and our evolutionary past.
But does our biological past give all would-be adulterers a free pass?
If a man decides to use this information as justification for having multiple sexual partners or for straying because he just can't help it, you still have the higher cortical ability to say no.
And so it is today, with temptations of the flesh never far from our grasp, and our busy lifestyles leading to a pressure cooker world, we've looked to science to tame our most primal instincts. But despite its advances, science has yet to deliver us from our biology. For now, the deadly sins of lust and wrath live on.